Should you take Social Security early? We've said many, many times it's best to delay in certain situations, but in fact, there are situations when it makes sense to take Social Security as soon as possible, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Let me bring in Tony Shore. Tony, welcome to the show. We're talking about claiming Social Security early. This is like, don't do it. This is not what you're supposed to do. But yes, yes, we're talking about claiming it early.
Wow. So Social Security is important. I know that. We've talked about it in the past, and you always bring it up because it's one of the things you get the most questions about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I get the most calls. People watching YouTube, they'll comment on the Social Security videos. They will email and call and say, hey, tell me about my situation. So everyone's situation is different. But the real question is, does it really even matter? Like I've done a show on that about, does it even matter when you claim Social Security? Does the timing matter? And the answer to that is actually no, it does not. Which is crazy to say, but
that's weird.
If you have the average life expectancy, the way the formula works is if you live to the average life expectancy that Social Security Administration deems you're going to live, which is different for men and women. But if you're going to live that long, it doesn't matter if you take it at 62 or you take it at 70 or anywhere in between, you're going to get the same amount.
Well, I don't know how that works because everybody else I talk to says if you take it early, you'll end up leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table.
If you live past the average life expectancy. That's the big factor. The biggest factor is life expectancy.
And nobody knows that.
Nobody knows that, but you know better than the Social Security office. They have their average. It's 82.4 years for a male that was born in 1960 or whatever it is. And so you look at that and say, okay, when should I claim? And so everyone that says, oh, delay, it makes sense if you're going to live a long life. If you're going to live a short life, maybe that's wrong. And so I want to give the list of when you should claim it at ASAP. When you should claim Social Security ASAP. And I'll start with the one that is very simple, very obvious, and that is if you're a single person, I'll get to why that's important in a minute, but if you're a single person and your life expectancy is low, then you should claim Social Security as soon as possible.
Wow. So, when to file can make a big difference, but you're saying, hey, if you have the average life expectancy, it doesn't.
It doesn't matter because you're going to get more if you take it early, more payments, but you're going to get less amount. If you delay, you'll get less payments, but more amount. And it's a break-even formula. And the break-even is your life expectancy.
Right. And everybody has a different sweet spot. I mean, some of it has to come down to how much money you have or need. That may dictate taking it early, right?
Right. But if we're talking about strictly where I'm going to get the most out of Social Security,
where that sweet spot is for me,
right, where that's going to depend on your life expectancy mostly.
Sure.
If you're single. So if you're single and you say, if I get to 75, it's going to be a miracle, then you should claim it Social Security at 62. Because if you wait till 70, you're only going to get 5 years of payments. It's not going to be better than the 15 years of payments or the 13 years of payments you would have gotten earlier if you took it earlier. So single people with lower life expectancies should consider claiming early. That makes sense. We'll get to why, if you're married, that changes. Here's another example of someone that should claim early, Tony. If you hate your job, you absolutely hate it, you're miserable, and everyone you work with is miserable because you are miserable. And you're saying, well, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to switch careers because it'll make me happier. It'll improve my mental well-being. This is a reason you might take Social Security early, because when you switch careers, it usually means it sometimes means that you will need additional income to do more of something that doesn't pay as much because you built a career in this, but you're like, I want to go do something. I'm just miserable. And my point here is, you know, why continue something if you're miserable? What is the whole point of this? So you have more money by delaying Social Security for what? Because you're miserable during the prime years of your life. You know, you're 63 years old and you hate life. Why? But you can make that change if you claim Social Security early. This would be a time to really strongly consider it. So it's not so much a financial decision, it's a well-being decision.
So, well,
but you really have to hate your job. You can't just say, I don't want to work anymore and claim it at 62. That may not be the best decision.
Well, no, I would hope not. I mean, we've talked about retiring early before, Dan. And really, if you retire before age 65, you're retiring early, in my opinion, because of Medicare and healthcare costs and Social Security. Sure, you can take it at 62, but you can't keep working then, or they'll take some of that money back, right?
Yeah, you have to consider the earnings limit. I will put the show on here up here for those that are thinking about claiming Social Security and continuing to work. But retiring early doesn't mean you take Social Security early. You could retire at 62 and claim Social Security at 70.
True.
Right.
True. That is true. Yeah. That's it.
But what I'm saying is, if you are miserable and the only way to become unmiserable is to get a new job, and that new job is going to pay significantly less you couldn't afford to pay rent, then maybe you turn on Social Security, and you're probably going to have to keep working longer than you would have if you stayed on your current job. But
sure.
So it's a balance.
But you and I don't have that issue because we absolutely love our jobs and are going to keep doing what we're doing for as long as we.
I don't have Social Security problems.
The little clown nose here on that one. Yeah.
Hey, Dan. Hey, Dan.
God bless Social Security.
Social Security could afford you to retire early if it's done right. But we're talking about claiming early because why would you? And I think if you love your job, that doesn't mean you still can't claim Social Security early, right?
I guess that's true.
But usually if you love your job and you don't need the income, you claim late, 70. So here's another example of the job issue. And this one's a little different than not liking your job. What if you have a job that is reducing your life expectancy? As an example, you might be I've used this, we did a show on this about 4.5 years ago. So I used the same example back then. You're a roofer in Florida. And so I'm thinking of strenuous jobs that are, reducing life expectancy. If, you're on the roof sweating and getting hit with that sun all day, if you're in a dangerous job, how about a linebacker or a running back for the NFL? That's a pretty bad example. I think the average life of that job is 3.5 years. But thinking along the lines of, if your job is killing you, manual labor, your grandfather lived to 101, was it, or 102?
You're working 101.
101. He was a farmer, but he retired because some of the things he couldn't do anymore.
Yeah, eventually he had to.
So
he would still be going right now if he could.
Right. And there are certain professions that, not like you and I, that are very physically demanding and that are reducing life expectancy. So why would you work longer so you can get more Social Security, but your life expectancy is going to be reduced because you're working longer?
See, that's what happens to a lot of people.
Right.
They finally retire, and then, they've got maybe 5-10 years versus the 30 that a lot of people can have.
Right. But again, this is if you're single. If you're married, you have to factor in your spouse. You don't have to, right? But I recommend you factor in a spouse. So there's another reason to claim early. You would claim early Social Security as early as possible if you have a spouse with a higher record who is delaying benefits. So one of the main basic points of Social Security strategy and optimization is, if you're married, one of the higher earner of the two delays for their benefit and for yours, and the lower earning spouse takes it early. Because when a spouse passes away, the surviving spouse gets one or the other, whichever one's higher. So if you have someone delaying, why not take it early for the younger spouse or the lower earning spouse? This way starts the clock, you get some income, and then you're still protecting both of you in the long run through the spousal survivor benefit. So this is a
strategy.
Strategy.
Strategery.
Right. Strategery. So that's a prime example of when it makes absolute sense to take it early. And people say, oh, don't take it early, you're going to hurt yourself in the long run. No, that's what my spouse is for. Keep them working and keep my wife going and getting the Social Security benefit and delaying it for both our benefits. So that's, and then age comes into factor here, life expectancy of the spouses. But so in a case where there's a person that's not enjoying the job, or that's the job is hurting them, and they're like, oh, Dan just said to take it early. Well, if your spouse is depending on your record because it's higher, you may want to switch careers, stop working, and still delay your Social Security for both of you and pull from other sources. We just did a show on delaying Social Security by using other sources of income. So just retiring doesn't mean claiming Social Security. You can retire at 62, take Social Security at 70. How do you do it? We did a show on that. And last but not least, actually, there's one more. After this, the number one reason to take it early. But here's another reason to take it early. If you're a widow or a widower and you've lost a spouse, you can claim if you're not disabled, if you've lost a spouse or an ex-spouse and you are 60 years old, you could claim survivor benefits. That's early. That's pretty darn early, taking it at 60. But it might make 100% sense to take it at 60 if you can switch to your own record later, which is still growing. And vice versa. You could take it at 60, your own record at 62, and switch to a survivor benefit at your full retirement age or later, if that makes sense to you. So there are very specific cases where you should take Social Security as soon as possible, even at age 60, if you've lost a spouse, and people don't realize that. So,
and this is huge because most financial advisors out there are saying you've got to delay Social Security and don't take it early. You'll lose too much of your benefit. And they don't really address the elephant in the room, which is life expectancy is really what determines it. And you're right. Or this issue, they don't say, hey, you should take it as early as possible if you're already widowed at that point. Like, let's say you're widowed in your 50s, you can take it as early as 60, survivor benefits. Yeah.
Right. And they're like, well, I'm delaying my Social Security because I got a great record. I'm thinking about delaying to 70 because that's what that's what everyone's doing. That's the new thing. And it's like, okay, do that, but you've lost a spouse. Why don't you take a spousal benefit, a survivor benefit? I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
You mean I could switch? Yes. And that's a really important thing to know. And when it comes to Social Security, is survivor benefits. Did a whole show on that. And I think, Tony, that is our most popular show, survivor benefits. Well, I think we timed it with that show that came out, How to Kill Your Spouse, or to kill a wife, or something like that.
No.
So it's our most popular show because I think there's the least amount of information out there. That's something people don't realize. And when the light bulb goes off, they're like, oh my goodness, I can claim a survivor benefit on my ex-spouse.
It's huge.
That I haven't been married to for 15 years. Yes. So, but drum roll, Tony, the number one reason why you should claim Social Security ASAP is because it's part of a strategic move and part of a broader retirement income plan. So don't just claim Social Security early because you just had that feeling.
I want to make sure. I have a feeling I should claim it early, so I'm going to do it so that way I'll get more money.
Tony, in 10 years, Social Security is not going to be able to pay out. Oh, I'm taking it now. I've done.
Here's another truth: Social Security is dying.
It is. It is. And if they don't change it, they're only going to be able to pay out 80% of the benefits. But what I've done, I use software to retirement income planning. Right. Here's what it would look like and here's the plan, right? And then I'll throw in some stressors in there, some stress testing, and say, well, what if the market collapses over the next 3 years? What if inflation goes up again? What if Social Security is not fixed and they cut the benefits by 20%? What does that do, and what should you do differently? And even showing a reduction of 20%, it still makes sense in most cases to delay Social Security. The same can be said, it still makes sense to take it early, but taking it early because you think Social Security is going to go broke is not the reason. Taking it early,
that's not
because
the
your uncle took it early and said, and he's rich and he told you to do it because that's what he did, does not make sense. Taking it early because your father died at 50 might make sense, or it might not if you're married. So you have to have a strategic plan. So if you take Social Security early, the number one reason, and if someone says, well, why did you take it early? It shouldn't be, well, I just have this feeling. It should be, oh, because I ran through a Social Security maximization report. I did the math. I looked at the numbers. I compared it to my spouse. We have a plan, and that's what the numbers say to do. That's why I'm taking it early, not because I'm just guessing, right?
Yeah.
There's no reason to guess. The software is so complex and it's out there now. You shouldn't be guessing. So
yeah, your Social Security maximization report, which our listeners can get, all they have to do is call you, and it's a complimentary consultation. The report's complimentary. There's no cost or obligation. So I'd encourage, number one, our listeners to do that, give you a call. But number two, that Social Security maximization report runs over 20,000 calculations built in. You know, it's not like Dan's sitting there with his calculator doing those calculations. He can do some of the personal ones, but you're inputting it into that software, and it's calculating. And then you look at other factors, your spousal benefits. It takes some of those into account, and you look at that. So I think that is huge when it comes to Social Security.
Yeah. And one of the things that people don't realize that's hugely powerful, is the taxation of Social Security. And so I'll put that on here. And that's just one little caveat about claiming it early is you're going to be impacting your future taxes. And because Social Security has some tax advantages, not all of it is taxed. So you'd rather have more Social Security income than not.
Yeah, only up to 85% is taxed.
Right. So there's a 15% tax break on Social Security. So wouldn't you rather have more? There's a case to delay it. And we'll do a show on delaying Social Security and why you should. But factoring in taxes might change your taking it early decision, but for the most part, it's ancillary. So I think all the things we talked about are good reasons to take it early, and taking it early is not the end of the world. You can always suspend it later in your full retirement age. After your full retirement age, say you're 68, you're like, oh, you could suspend Social Security. People don't realize that they could stop payments, but just know that the decision should be based on math or based on logic or based on a financial plan that you've made, not based on your emotions, because emotions usually mean a bad decision.
Yep.
Once my Social Security checks start coming,
life changes, right?
Yeah.
So, Tony, I know you're thinking about taking Social Security ASAP, but
no, not there yet.
You love your job.
Not there yet. Come on, I'm not there yet, Dan.
I know. We got 40 years before you hit that age. Well, who knows? Who knows? Social Security might not even be there. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, Tony, thanks for a good show, everyone. I'm going to put the number and the website up in a moment so you can give me a call if you want that free Social Security maximization report. Have a great day. See you guys next week.
All matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc. and Dolphin Insurance, Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.